I'm privileged to be here talking to you about the state of threat today in this age of AI. I know you may be getting tired now with everyone talking about AI, but it is what it is. A few years back, every few years we get new buzzwords, and right now we are going through that cycle of AI. Everything that we are doing today is embedded with AI, and it's but natural that it will boil down to cybersecurity as well. And I'm here to talk to you about what it means today with the adoption of AI on both sides of the fence and how it is impacting us in our day to day lives. Us, and when I say us, I'm talking about this group together, where we are partners when it comes to protecting, securing our IT infrastructure. So I'm going to be talking about what we together need to be thinking about. So, yeah, I'll be talking about uh, the threat landscape we see here in the region. And I don't want to just look at Philippines. I'm considering ASEAN as a region because what happens with our neighbors is also very important, because we should be able to learn from others' mistakes or others' problems before they become our problems. We'll talk about how identity, ransomware, and when AI obviously is changing the way threats are interacting with us and we are interacting with threats. And then we talk about some of the lessons and playbooks that we have identified. Now, this is in no way exhaustive. I know 15, 20 minutes is not enough to go through everything, but this is just an idea or the direction that we should be looking into. So let's first start with the fear factor. And I know everyone has this, way to run presentations where the first thing we do is try to shock you. And it's not intentional, but it's also the fact that we are considering what we need to be prepared for before we go about working towards it. So some of the numbers, and again, I will not read through everything, you can see for yourself, but the numbers that talk about are things that matter to us. So for example, the amount of money that is being spent to recover from ransomware events or to recover from incidents. Ransomware may not be the only one that gets impacted, but to recover from incidents is very, very important. We also need to understand the idea behind what exactly is powering the threat actors. So, and then obviously the number of threats we see on a daily basis is increasing. The exponential growth is not, it doesn't tell us that the threat actors are increasing. It's just that they're able to run more things across to us. And one of the reasons for it is AI, but they are able to send more lures out. So if we are going fishing, if I had 10 fishing rods put in, the probability of me catching a fish is higher than if I'm just waiting with one fishing rod. So, and then what we need to understand it is that it's not threat actors trying to do something cutting edge. Threat actors are also as lazy as you and I are. Threat actors are also, in most cases, if not all, cyber criminals. And one thing that we need to know about the criminality element is, if they wanted to do things the right way, if they wanted to put in the hard work, they wouldn't have been criminals. So they also try to find the easy way out. It's our job to not give them the easy way. So let's talk about some of the regional happenings that we are looking at. Across ASEAN, especially in the Philippines, we are seeing rapid digitization of the economy, both in governmental and private sectors. We are looking at IT and BPO and BPA kind of functions increasing, and the operations for global infrastructure are being run out of the Philippines. We are also looking at the usage of IT without a lot of cybersecurity as a focus. And what I mean by that is also on a personal level, where it's the user who may or may not be cyber literate despite using technology or high tech in their day to day lives. And then compounding all of this is the fact that a lot of SMEs, a lot of banking institutions, and the neighboring and the associate services are inclined to use high technology because of the changes in the market, but they are not scaling up their cybersecurity practices as quickly as possible. Not because they don't want to, but because the speed at which the changes are happening does not allow for the traditional IT and IT security models to catch up in time. Um, and this is also one place where we see a lot of nation state activity. We saw state sponsored threat actors influencing the way cybersecurity events are happening. They could be doing end to end or running end to end attacks to fuel their own requirements for hard currency, either through Bitcoin or other mechanisms, or running operations on the back of cyber criminal gangs in order to get initial access. So these are some of the things that are impacting the region. Now, if we look at the country specific snapshots, and you can see some of the other countries as well, but for Philippines, we are seeing that phishing is one of the primary reasons why cybersecurity incidents have been caused in the last year. What this doesn't mean that everything else is going down. It just means that the primary threat vector is phishing or email. And what it means is for us to look at what could be the things that get impacted by email. So if today we are looking at phishing as the primary source of threat actor, do you know what it impacts? What is the first thing that gets compromised when it comes to phishing? It is identity. Identity gets compromised immediately after a phishing attack, and that leads to other stuff. And of course, other regions have similar patterns coming up. If we look at ransomware landscape, again, 1.7 million is the average number. Now, you guys are practitioners here. We can translate that in Philippine pesos, or you know exactly how much it would be to have an incident here and how much it would cost an organization. A lot of times we forget the cost is not just maybe paying the ransomware, but also the recovery, the regulatory fines, and so on. And those are the things that are driving some of our behaviors. Now, remember what I talked about phishing being the primary way, and we've seen a spike in Philippines specifically, and that sort of identifies with what you see here. We've got malicious email driving the or being the primary threat vector, but identity also is very, very important. In this day of AI and AI enabled IT, we have to understand that if identity is not secure, we are letting stuff through the authorized pathways. With the identity being compromised, it then becomes the primary ransomware delivery mechanism, be it from your mobile devices, be it from corporate owned or personal devices. It's easy for the identity to get compromised somewhere else and start impacting your corporate environment. So those are some of the things that are keeping us awake when it comes to defining cybersecurity principles. Now, if we look at some of the gaps that we have noticed, it is to identify where MFA is properly deployed or not, and is it extended across all identities. As you know, if you look at the Microsoft ecosystem, even the applications that we are hosting, they're also considered identities, non-human identities. And now with the expansion and adoption of AI, those non-human identities are also what compromised AI or AI-based threat actors are going after. If you are giving privileges to your AI agents, and if the AI agent gets compromised, you don't even know which identity is being used for that particular threat activity, because it's the digital identity that was compromised in this case. And then here are some of the costs, both from a financial standpoint as well as human. One of the things that we need to remember is that it is us, the security practitioner, who are the ones who are impacted when it comes to human cost when a breach happens. Who hasn't put in multiple all-nighters when there is a cyber incident in our organization? Who doesn't, despite the fact that it may or may not be our fault, it is us who bear the brunt of recovering from it. And that's the human cost. The financial cost can be looked at any time. Now let's talk about how AI is impacting, and again, I know I'm running out of time, but I want to ensure that because of uh, AI being implemented, it doesn't necessarily mean that the traditional delivery mechanisms are changing. The traditional delivery mechanisms remain the same. Ransomware brands are still active. We've got 51 active brands here or active threat actor groups here in this region. The median time has come down to 3 days, and it gets further compressed if AI usage by threat actors is seen. So we ourselves have tested, and we let an open claw environment run in our own control network, and it compressed the time from over a weekend to 3 hours to compromise an entire network from an active directory to getting elevated privileges. So this leads us to believe that we need to ensure that despite the AI disruption, we still need to follow the best practices, the bare necessities, the basics. And then from an operator standpoint, we see a mix of both organized crime as well as nation state activity. ASEAN is not unfamiliar with these types of organizations. We see both. We also see the organizational or cybercrime organizations having presence nearby locally in the Golden Triangle as well. So which leads us to believe that we need to keep on our toes all the time, because what are normally seen as non-office hours type activity in the West, where threat actors normally try to compromise them in non-office hours, we can see this across 24/7 because they are happening in our locality, right? Finally, if we look at the threat landscape, and this is, we are looking at what has changed and what is changing, we are seeing that 94% people think that AI is the biggest driver when it comes to cybersecurity. 87 vulnerabilities were flagged, and they are the fastest growing cyber risk in this year. And again, this will continue to see growth. And then the biggest problem is the assessment of AI tools before adoption is next to nothing in a large chunk of organizations, and that leads to gaps. So with that, let's talk a final few things about generative AI, hype versus reality. We've got Hollywood has sold us this idea that AI will drive end to end. AI has achieved singularity. That is not the case. AI cannot do everything today. It still needs human level intervention. But having said that, what it has done is it has reduced the entry point of skill level for threat actors to a very bare minimum. And what this means is that the cost for someone to cause a cyber attack on an organization has gone down drastically. Gone are the days when threat actors have to keep multiple people to intervene in case of a cyber attack. Now they can run everything in an agentic fashion. There are tools available, and we'll see that the number of people required by the threat actor to actually run a cyber attack are the bare minimum, just like what we are seeing, the disruption that is happening in software development. Everyone has heard the term vibe coding, right? The threat actors are also vibe coding through cyber attacks. They can let an open claw environment and an MCP server aimed at offensive security and use those skills to run cyber attacks with maybe 20% or less than 20% human intervention, more than 80% attack being run automatically. So with that, I will sort of stop my presentation, and we can take up some questions. I know we've got some pre-built questions available, but happy to answer anything outside of this session as well. There's a lot of stuff. I could go on for another hour, but with interest of time, thank you for your attention.
Okay. Okay. Mayuresh, I got to tell you, this was sometimes on these talks, I just want to put my head down on the table and just say, oh, geez, I can't keep up with this. Again, the QR code will remind you about that. If you would, click onto the QR code and let us know in one word what type of AI-driven threat worries your organization most today. help each other learn by dealing with these kinds of issues and sharing what bothers you. We've heard Mayuresh gave just a sprint, and it's unfortunate because I know you could carry on for a long, long time and be as engaging as this very short presentation. But I'd like to ask you this. You talked about a regional need to learn, which I think is good. We can take a look at what's happening in Myanmar, Vietnam, and other places. I'd like to offer, so this is more of an offering as opposed to a question. I'd like to offer that we here in the Philippines ought to be able to teach as well as learn, because we're having, as he said, this and the previous speaker, we have a lot of stuff going on here. And many of us have people that we know regionally. So I think we have a responsibility to teach as well as to learn. So a couple of questions come to mind. With cyber threats crossing borders, while regulations continue to diverge, what strategies can our organizations, we as professionals and our organizations, what strategies can we adopt to maintain a strong and consistent security posture across the different markets and jurisdictions within our own country and then within the region? What are some ideas?
So that's a great question. And I get this question across almost all the regions I cover. And the underlying question is about, or the concerns are usually around things like regional requirements for compliance, data residency, and so on and so forth. But if we take just one step back and then try to understand what are the things that are being asked off of this, it's basically being in control of what can be controlled by us. So most frameworks, most compliance requirements which are regional are using globally recognized cybersecurity frameworks. So they are not reinventing the wheel in such a way in trying to enforce something that is totally foreign. The aim is that if we get our basics right when it comes to cybersecurity and overall IT frameworks that we set in place for our organizations, we are able to get that immediate level of maturity. Sometimes what happens that in the haste to get things done quickly, these basics get overlooked. And the penalty of that is we are later having to fix it retroactively. And that is where we see the most friction. When it comes to compliance, the friction doesn't come from adhering to compliance. It's basically trying to fix those bare minimum basics that are required of cybersecurity and going back and fixing them. So if we start from that level itself, we won't be struggling through those problems in the future. And then the other bit we need to understand is that data is the currency today. If we own and control and manage our data properly from day one, from the time we start generating and building the data, then we will have a much better visibility and the ability to exercise control. If we don't have that visibility from day one, we will struggle to adhere to any of the regional requirements.
That's an excellent answer, or excellent ideas. And that actually then leads to kind of a follow-on question. What role do you see human expertise? You know, we're talking about a lot of times, oh, well, I need to buy this, I need to buy that, some kind of box, and we hope that's going to be the answer. But what role do you see human expertise continuing to play in cybersecurity as AI becomes more capable in both attack and defense? Are we all going to be replaced by AI?
Again, this question also comes up quite a bit for the simple reason that, like I said, I design SOCs and implement SOCs for a living, and SOCs today are powered by humans. And the biggest question that analysts ask that, oh, is the agentic SOC going to replace me? And the answer is no. The AI and the agentic capabilities that are being developed, and as we see them being developed today, they are not going to be replacing humans. They're ensuring that humans are more efficient. Just to put this in perspective, there are not enough people on the entire planet to be able to handle all cyber incidents that are generated today by whatever 300 million or so organizations that are there on the globe today. So we need help. So there's no harm in accepting help. However, what is important is that AI should not be let to work alone. AI is not the answer to every question. And there is a philosophy that we practice in our own organization, while we also talk about this outside, is there should always be human in and human on the loop. There are two very important things. Human in the loop means that humans are ensuring that whatever the AI is executing, it is understandable and explainable. Just like you would ask for accountability from your SOC provider, are you going to ask for accountability from your agentic AI as well? Because if you cannot ask that question, then that agentic AI is failing you. So that's the human in the loop bit, to ensure that someone is accountable and responsible. If something goes wrong, it can be stopped. The human on the loop is that the learning should go both ways. What the agentic AI is providing is the scale and machine level speeds that we can execute. But that doesn't mean that there are certain decisions that are taken much quicker by humans. I can spot an anomaly without doing anything, any mathematical calculation, just by looking at a screen. The AI will still run those calculations and then arrive at the same conclusion. So we have to be able to differentiate what are the things that the human can do better, and how that same very human, can use the AI to do things differently.
That's a lot of food for thought. And I mean, I really appreciate your insights on it, but I don't have a real quick response to that either, because it's just so, it boggles my imagination in many ways. And it's really going to put a burden on all of us. But we have like 60 seconds left. So part of that's going to be taken up with the question. If you were the big brother to folks in this room and you put your arm around them and give them 15 seconds of advice, what would that advice be?
The 15 seconds or the fastest advice, I don't think I can give advice in 15 seconds, but the quickest advice that I'd love to give in this area of cybersecurity and IT professionals is that first and I've repeated this multiple times, get the basics right. If you don't get the basics right, you will be the one who will be struggling to overcome problems caused by it. The second bit is that know what is happening. Visibility is key. It's just like the physical world. If you go to a doctor and tell the doctor something is wrong with me, but I cannot tell you what the symptoms are, the doctor will not be able to diagnose it. If you are the doctor of your IT and cybersecurity in your organization, you need to know what is happening in that body. If you don't know it, you can't diagnose the problem. And when you know it, you know exactly what are the things that you require. It is then your job to then go to the management and say that, oh, this is what I need the money for.
Excellent. And that's where I think now we've got between our last speaker and now this speaker, and then continuing on. One of the things that I like about the fact that this conference ends at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, gives you time to network, but it also then gives you time to go back to the office maybe and actually start implementing things. That's pretty amazing